It's just going to be too hot to slurp, I'm afraid. It's just freshly brewed. Just a ginger tea, you know. Anyway, slurpty diddly do, my G's. Hope you're doing wonderful. And I was thinking today, you know, in normal people's brains, what they probably think when they're not sure what to do. Like, what should I do? Pub? Go for a pint? Yeah, a pint? A pub? In my brain, I'm like, when I'm like, what should I do? Cheeky little vital bass? Cheeky little vital tutorial? So I thought, you know, I was having a little swim earlier, and then I was like, what should I do after this? Cheeky vital tutorial? Yeah, alright. I've made a sick one for you guys. It's called the Shadow Fleet. Here's a demo before we break down the patch. Oh, I really like this one. I've just got one little thing in the MIDI on the first way round here. The whole patch is at D. There's a little part here where it glides up to G sharp, but it's in this moment where it's quite subtle. But yeah, really, really nice there. Anyway, let's break down the sound. I'll just use the version with just one note held down the D. Alright, so I've got quite a lot going on this one, but I'm going to try and be quick and give you all the alpha that you need. So we start off with where we're using pretty much everything except for the phaser, but everything else is being used. So yes, well, nothing is playing now, and I just looked over there as if there was a camera there. That was like back from the old school days when I was in the other apartment. But yeah, so. How do we start? We start with what shapes have we got, right? We've got, actually, I tell a lie. We've got a saw wave. And what I did with this one was I put the low pass mode on. So it actually acts like a low pass filter, right? So it's a saw wave that's been filtered with a low pass. All right? Directly inside. I'm going to mute this little thing here. So I start off with a simple LFO pattern on this low pass of this saw wave within the mode. I wanted to do it within the mode so that I had I was able to use the other filters for other jobs because I'm limited in Vital with how many filters I can use. But yeah, that was important. And then we'll get the sub in already. Minus 24. I might need to turn on the distortion. I'm going to turn that on because it's very important to the sound, and this is how I made it. So I put the distortion on first. The sine fold up at 7.5 dB, right? And this is the main part of the sound. It's the combination of the two oscillators. Sub bass minus 24, and the saw wave with a low pass on at minus 5. You know, so it's not exactly the same note. Would still be nice, but minus 5 had a darker kind of vibe to it. I really, really like that. Okay. What's also important to note is the phase position. The phase randomization is off, and you get a vastly different sound if you move this around. So it's, when I say vastly different, the dynamic of it changes a lot. Okay, you get slightly different results. So when you've got the phase randomization off, it's good and well, but where is your sound actually starting in the waveform is something to always pay attention to, you know? So you can use the left number to change where it starts. And when you're combining two sounds together, by having the phases in different spots, you'll get different results when you're designing the patch always. So it's very important. All right. I next added in like a stereoed oscillator as well with the unison here. And this one, yeah, this one is a bit more aggressive. It's wide. It's actually a sine wave, but I've put the smear mode on, so it makes it have a bit of distortion on it. But it sounds really nice. It's also the same range as my low sub bass, minus 24, but it's a lot lower in volume. It's got its stereo on, and I actually open up that smear mode over time. I've got a lot of LFO movements happening on this patch, so I'm going to try and explain them as best I can. But the main the idea was really these first two are doing the main movement, and this third one is like a backup sort of stereo layer, which increases in intensity over time. So the smear mode, it sort of increases the intensity here. So you can hear towards the end of the sound, it gets a bit more aggressive because I've used this LFO here, which is LFO 2, right, to have this slow, it's just a slow ramp up. It's a triangle, but it never really gets up to halfway because the rate is quite slow. But this LFO is used to add variation and intensity as you hold the note down. And so one way I was doing that was by increasing the smear on this kind of background part to the sound. So the first two are kind of still similar, but the background changes a bit. Alright, let's add on my LFO sandwich, okay? So I've put a new LFO here, LFO 3, controlling this is basically going to control the timing of LFO 1 and a few other things as well. So LFO 1 down here, I've got the phase position, so I'm going to set that back on, and I've just tracked LFO 3 to modulate the start position of LFO 1 down here in the phase slider, you know. And now this part where it goes up at the beginning, it speeds up the LFO, and then as it drops back down to neutral, then the normal LFO pattern resumes. It was cool to have that like change in rhythm during the sound, you know. It's like quite nice and simple, but kind of goes off the grid, which is cool. All right. So, yeah, the smear mode on the LFO, it's on both LFOs, right? So it actually that sort of slightly aggressive stereo layer, like it's going in time with the movement, firstly, and then secondly, it's also ramping up slowly, so it gets more intense as well. So he follows the rhythm, and the whole knob creeps up as well at the same time as the note's held down. All right, I think I've covered most of these parts. Is there any other? I don't think there's any other modulations going on here. So we can move over next to the sample. This is basically a kind of nice little bit of noise. I've used it very minimally. Just following the main rhythm on the LFO 1. Alright, let's continue though. So this stereo distortion layer, now you're hearing it in its fullness, but I actually wanted it more in the background, so I didn't want it to conflict so much with the low end. So I've actually taken out some low end of this oscillator 3 here. So you can, if you want to hear it on its own. Here we go. So I'm just using that stereo, it's like a stereo sub-harmonic thing, but I cut the low end out here in the sound design. Alright, so it gives space for the other one a bit more. And it becomes a much less important sound, but very much heard in the background still. Alright, I really improved the mood of the patch when I flicked on a little low pass on the already low passed saw wave. And this is where I got a lot of variation happening as the notes held down, because basically without this movement, if I bypass this and also bypass this, we got a lot of things. We've got a lot of things going on this one. Having that filter on, like, yeah, it shaved off a bit of high end, but it gave me like a nicer vibe. That was a happy accident when I switched that on. But what I did then was I put 3 movements on the mix, on the resonance, and also the cutoff, and it actually kind of like filters itself down even more as the patch progresses. And it's all tracked to this slow LFO2. It's very complicated though, because one of the parameters, the mix of it, is tracked to this LFO. So this LFO3 was modulating LFO1 in its timing, but I've also used this LFO to also exaggerate certain parts of the certain parameters as well. So it's a very complex routed patch. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. You have to go quite complex with your routing if you want to get sounds that really develop and keep your interest, you know? So sometimes it can be difficult to explain everything that's going on and remember everything, but the key thing is, like, the more movements you can put in the right areas, like, the more of a rich and detailed sound you're going to have with changes, you know? But yeah, this filter really changes slowly over time. Mostly, that's the main thing it really does. Okay, so we can kind of crack on to the effects section now, I believe. So yeah, obviously the distortion was already on. Without it, you haven't got that vibe at all, you know. But yeah, we leave that. There's no modulation on that. It's just there to do its job. All right, a little bit of flanging. And here I've tracked it to this LFO3 again as well, so it's kind of going a little bit of extra flange and then back to normal. Okay, the flanger works well at the beginning of the chain often, before you put other effects on. It has a nice little natural movement it does. Okay, this filter, basically the mix is fairly low, but I also control the mix in two ways. On the LFO3, so it goes a bit aggressive at the start and then cuts down, and it also slowly ramps up over time. And when the mix comes on that filter, it shapes the sound, so basically it's almost a fuller sound without it, but I wanted, the sound was already really full in the low end, so the idea of the filter was to give more definition. But I wanted the fullness of the low end still, so that's why I only used a little bit of that definition where it scoops out some of the low mids, you know. But I used it in a small way. The chorus, really nice, just creeps up a little bit slowly on the mix. It's off to the beginning, but it kind of just stereos the sound a bit more towards the end. It's quite subtle, but it gives you a little bit of extra stereo as you go on. The compressor, this is this is sort of OTT style, and in this one there's no modulation, it's just slapped on to give a bit of kind of fizz to the high end. Kind of gels a bit of saturation, gelling everything together essentially. But yeah, used in a way where it's not really a compressor, it's just a lot of distortion signal, if anything. Delay next, little tail. Little delay tails just for a bit of stereo interest. My throat is almost gone. My bad. Been doing a lot of videos. High end boost with the EQ. Classic kind of thing I do at the end of my patches quite a lot. You know, we'd already low passed the sound quite a lot, you know, in the initial stages. So once all the character's been put in through the effects, bringing that high end back up again. Touch of reverb to finish, 1% or so, just taking the lows out of the reverb as well. And that's it finished, you know? That's the Shadow Fleet. One of the coolest Vital patches I've made for a little while, if I do say so myself. Yeah, really enjoy that. And yeah, that's all from me today. May I quickly remind you as well, I've got loads of Vital presets available on my website. There's bundles as well, and you've got phase plant presets. People often download my free Vital presets, but I have to warn you guys, those ones are the ones I made when I first downloaded the synth about 5 years ago. So you're really, if you're only getting the free ones but not getting the premium packs, like, I don't really know what you're doing. The quality difference is massive. I've just left those free ones on for years and I can't really be bothered to take them down, but they're really not that great, the free ones, to be quite honest. Like, I can't even remember what they sound like. But yeah, the newer the packs are, they get a bit more valuable because my sound design knowledge gets a bit better, and so they tend to be the newer packs as sounding better than the older ones. But yeah, I price them all very fairly anyway, with the Vital phase plant and current packs. Also, my G's, if you ever want to improve your synthesis with me one-on-one, we can do that in a lesson, or you do some other guidance for any part of your music production journey, whether it's mindset, mentorship in general, or working on a track together, or having some feedback on a number of your tracks, whatever you want to do. I'm always there for one-on-one lessons. If you find a splot available in the calendar, then feel free to book it. And if you want any mixing and mastering work done as well, you can email me at info@artifactmusic.com for a price. And come along and join us on Discord if you want to be part of the inner circle, which is, it sounds a bit strange to say perhaps, but it really is the absolute heart and soul of everything I do is in my Discord community. And you can access that via Patreon on the €10 tier or higher. Should you want to support a little bit on Patreon at a lower amount, I really appreciate that. And there's loads of content on there, and I actually leave all of my old content up. I know some people put like a block on their old content, so if you join you only get what's there. Everything that I've started from my Patreon from way back in the day is all on there when you join, so it's a no-brainer really. Aside from that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, highly appreciate if you can do that. Give the video a cheeky little like, and that's it from me today. I will see you guys very soon. Take care, much love.